we need that anyway, because some people. That's coming.
Okay, Bob, can you hear us now?
Hey, Bob. Mr. Rabbits, can you hear us? Volume. Yeah, that's what I'm
I just asked her.
Is Sharon online?
Rebecca says she can hear us now.
Oh, thumbs up here.
I can
Okay.
hear you now. I couldn't hear you a few minutes ago, but I can now.
Excellent.
Mr. Ravitz, are you able to hear us, sir?
You just put yourself on mute.
Yeah.
We're broadcasting. And, nope. And everybody else can hear us. That's been confirmed.
It is?
Yeah, Sharon can hear us. Rebecca can hear us.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, they can hear us. Now,
Okay.
Just a reminder of what we just voted on.
Yes, sir. We have voted to set a meeting time and date should we have technical difficulties, which have in fact been alleviated. And we accepted a report from emergency management.
Second.
We're now ready to move into other agenda items. Do VOCC reports, seeing no one present. Anyone have information there? And facilities management, I want to say it's the same situation, no one present. Discussion review possible action from county clerk's office, county court clerk's office, county treasurer, county sheriff, county assessor, district attorney, public defender, Oklahoma County courts. Anyone wishing to report or share information from any of those offices?
did everybody get the email from Assessor Stein?
I did.
Yes.
Everyone did.
Is Mr. Rabbits on to make comment on this item?
Mr. Rabbit, on did. Did not make
Make comment on this item?
I don't think
You still don't think he can hear us? Are you texting him, Dan?
I've got his cell number, I'm not sure I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an invalid phone number.
I don't have it. I just checked. Until do you have it? Mr. Rouse? I thought I had it in my phone. I don't. That's Sharon, Becca, I think.
And they voted.
Yeah, they can hear us. This is broadcasting. We're just trying to help and wait.
Do we know if the general YouTube feed is getting audio?
they can now, yes. That's what I said.
Thought I did.
I know.
Can you continue?
No, we can continue, absolutely. It was just, the question was, whether or not Bob had something to say under this item.
I think we move forward and Mr. Ravitch will identify if there is a difficulty there and will either advise us or no report from.
Hold on, I just got it. Go ahead.
I'd entertain a motion to reopen item number 7.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
And Barnes is an aye. Thank you. Discussion review and possible action regarding reentry provisions and plans for Oklahoma County offices and facility. Had a couple of notes that I took on in regard to questions that we had in our previous meeting and things, topics of discussion. So I'll start with that. Signage was one topic of discussion with a couple of samples provided by Mr. Matthews. Request for everyone to take a look at those and offer recommendations not only to content but to posting, etc. I would add I haven't checked the actual agenda, but I was advised that the agenda item was approved for BOCC tomorrow to consider recommendations from this group.
As that was passed out yesterday, there were two proposed signs. One regarding masks for anyone over the age of 5 that would require their nose and mouth be covered at all times within county facilities. The other one regarding prohibition of entering the buildings if you met any of those, had any of those symptoms. And then let me pass this out. I have revised that second one regarding the symptoms to cover the fever of 100.4 or higher, persistent or severe cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, and other symptoms as defined by the CDC. That was one of our points of discussion yesterday.
Move to receive updated document.
Second. Motion and second to receive updated documents. Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
And Barnes is aye. Thank you. A recommendation I had on that signage you covered, Dan, with the CDC reference. It's going to say as per CDC or whatever.
As defined by CDC.
Yeah, I think that's good.
So, as we talked about yesterday, and then the initial document that the BOCC had passed, the resolution, and then the courts have certain prohibitions and trying to, where possible, mirror those together. I attempted to print off and bring kind of my suggestions on that, on this. And it's similar to Dan, but yet it's a little more detailed. But for whatever reason, I couldn't get it emailed and then printed off. So basically, the prohibitions, it says, in order to protect the health and welfare of the public and employees of Oklahoma County, the Board of County Commissioners of Oklahoma County finds it is in the best interest of the public and employees to deny access to the Oklahoma County Courthouse, Oklahoma County Annex, and other county properties or locations where county business is conducted for persons who, one, have been diagnosed with or have been in direct close contact, and that's less than 6 feet, and prolonged contact, more than 2 to 3 minutes, within the past 2 weeks with anyone who's been diagnosed with or suspected of having COVID-19. 2, has apparent symptoms of COVID-19 such as fever, and then in excess of 100.4, chills, cough, either new or different than your usual cough, because some, Mr. Compton, have a cough, sore throat, shortness of breath, flu-like symptoms, or any other symptom identified by the Center for Disease Control as being associated with symptomatic of COVID-19 infection. 3, has been asked to self-quarantine by any doctor, hospital, board of health, or other medical provider or health institute, or who resides with anyone who has been asked to self-quarantine. And 4, any person who has traveled to a country outside the U.S. in the past 14 days, and those with whom they have lived or had close contact. And those essentially are taken from that initial document that the BOCC passed, and then there's a little bit of additional information there. And then, so that's kind of the conditions upon entry into the building, and that would apply to both employees and the public. And then we had talked about, so a recommendation to establish separate employee and public entrances. My suggestion would be the north entrance, the revolving door entrance for the public, and that our employees would enter through the west gate with allowances for those who might need accommodation, obviously, to be able to use an accessible entrance. The third would be similar to Dan's, that masks be required for all persons entering the facilities, and that all persons, employees, and public be required to wear them when in public spaces, always waiting rooms, etc. Additionally, it would require employees to wear masks when they're conducting business with the public. It wouldn't apply to when I'm in my office or Cody's in my office. That would be more of a personal preference issue. In that, we would provide masks for those that don't have them that are entering the building, given that we don't want to be mask central, so it would be a limited basis. And that would be part of that education piece that we talked about yesterday. Was yesterday? What was yesterday? Huh? Yeah, yesterday. Just again, social distancing be observed in all common areas, hallways, etc. And then the current elevator ridership limits remain in place. And that we continue to encourage employees to work remotely, if not possible, that the employers are encouraged to stagger reporting times, etc. So those are kind of my thoughts as to recommendations.
I think they open the front at 6. That sound right?
7.
7?
7.
Okay, so we can start letting employees potentially start live. Employees come in at 7.
Yeah, my concern, and I don't know that it's a valid one, if we're requiring employees to report, say they have a normal 8 o'clock start time, but we say you have to be here at 7.
Yeah.
They're more than likely eligible for compensation because that's a requirement.
Or their shift can be revised that they're working 7 to 4 rather than 8 to 5, 7:30 to 4:30.
And that time outside is just part of their shift.
Yeah. I think the thing that if we all try to get here at 8 o'clock, we haven't accomplished anything. And that includes if we approve going through the west gate, because people will be lined up out there and trying to come in. And then entering the lobby, the elevators that are already occupied, that elevator areas are already occupied as well. One of the concerns I have about the West Gate is we're in storm season right now, and inclement weather, and requiring people to walk outside, come through the alleyway when it could be storming, could be raining, and exit the same way. And as you know, afternoon weather tends to be more severe than the morning weather does.
Yeah,
Joe, did you mean the west gate, or just to clarify real quick, or the west door at the end of this hallway?
the West Gate.
Okay.
Because, and it's still at some point, people are gonna be entering basically a choke point.
Mhm.
I thought, in my own mind, the West Gate, alley gate might help to alleviate some of that. The other thing we could do, and Keith may, I'm not even gonna look at it when I throw this out there, but we could potentially, consider converting the freight elevator to employees only as another means to get our employees moving more quickly when Keith is not using it.
That's a good plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's not,
You can look at it. Okay.
yeah, he's not doing anything yet.
That's okay.
His shoes are on.
Yeah, the only issue there is you gotta have the key to access it.
Well, he can turn that off.
Yeah, we can ask Tornado to do that.
Okay.
And then Dan's point about inclement weather, that's true, and I recall some of the issues, in the past with regard to employees being out in inclement weather. The other consideration could be that, we're fond of plexiglass here these days. And we create a barrier, and we could funnel all employees to those, needing accommodation through the tunnel, creating a separate entrance there as well.
Yeah, that-
Or perhaps doing West Gate and that. Again,
Gotta be
the issue
careful.
is-
You got the ADA door right next to it, so we gotta be careful. But I mean,
Again,
Yeah.
the issue is, at some point within this building, people are gonna stack up. It wasn't designed for this type of event. But trying to be reasonable in our approach.
One question on the freight elevator, would the two-person guidance still be in place, or would that be slightly loosened for employees?
it kind of depends. Are we requiring employees to wear masks? If we are, I mean,
If involved in public engagement and contact with the public.
but I mean, when they enter the building, they will have,
If you want, if you want to adjust that number upward slightly but still having, right, I just, even with masks, I don't think we want 10 people on an elevator.
Yeah, and that elevator is bigger than the other elevators are.
4 per car
That's what I,
with masks. Moderate.
it's less than 1% possibility for transmission if two people are wearing a mask. So if you and I are wearing a mask, I mean, just require everybody on that elevator to have a mask on. And then it's less than 1%. I mean, that's just my opinion. And going off
Yeah,
of the EDC
if
stuff.
we can get the mask requirement and we can open the elevators up, that's great. My concern is if it's a voluntary mask and we remove the ridership, and I get on, you wear your mask because you've been good about it. I get on and I don't. The protections that you spoke about for when we're both wearing one go away.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's reasonable. I don't want to be unreasonable.
So are we trying to get to having employees wear masks? Are we able to make that a requirement? Or is that part of what we're waiting on the district attorney's
No,
office?
DA's office, opinion is out.
Did it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Excellent.
printed some.
Great.
Before we get too far away from it, the concern on the West Gate would include, in recent days, they've had equipment
I just
and
don't see it.
construction going on. So walking through a work zone doesn't work very well.
and that includes the crane and dumpsters.
Yes. And that is a major issue right now.
Because they're working on that end.
Is the west door of the annex still available? I know it's an emergency exit. That could alleviate, and keeping the weather consideration in mind, I'm certainly not opposed to that, but keeping that in mind, the west door as opposed to challenged with the issues in the alley itself might help alleviate some of them.
Still bring people. Yeah. You still bring people to that same area of congregation behind the security checkpoint. The issue would be.
There's no way around that.
I'm sorry?
Is there any way around that?
Yes,
The alley.
potentially.
Yeah, using the alley.
But even alley, you're still bringing them into,
No.
You can conceive,
Or you can take them to the courthouse.
conceivably, those people that are here for court, that don't require an accommodation into that facility could be, sent through the east entrance, which would then leave only those people. The problem is, a lot of people don't know, you know.
Yep.
We have so many people that come into this building and they're walking in our halls looking for courtrooms. Because unfortunately, it's no fault of their own. There's confusion. But if it can be communicated, if you're here for a court proceeding to enter through the east doors of the courthouse, and then that would hopefully limit some of that congestion to employees and those then that are remaining to do business here. You know, people filing in the court clerk's office, filing in the county clerk's office.
That's a great idea. If you could keep the employees at the gate in the alley and access to the freight elevator, those that need to go to the courthouse simply make a right turn and can go from there without ever having to be in the annex. The elevator is there for use. People who have to access the courts, like Joe says, through the east entrance, those people doing business in the building through the front. And it's my understanding that any additional security staff could be covered with this COVID finance.
If you're going to send people to the courthouse that are having business in the courthouse, do we need to take the employees through the west gate?
Any separation, I think, would be helpful.
Can we ask the sheriff's office to open the second security station there so that they can move people through quickly as well?
They go to the west gate, they can get to that freight elevator without ever coming into the annex.
That's true.
Turn left, access it from the facilities area.
oh, that's right.
Get on,
That,
go right up.
but that little holding area outside of that is pretty small. But again, you get into the weather issues.
Well, the weather issues can be resolved with COVID money as well. I'm not sure who all got the article, but the article this morning in Tulsa, now while that president, whatever, they're doing things for the Tulsa election board for the social distancing, and they're re-engineering their entrance so as to be able to accommodate for social distancing. Now, if there are things that we need to address on the backside of this building, such as covered area to stand or something of the sort, I think that's something that we should address and discuss and figure out how to pay for with this COVID. The CARES money, sorry, COVID money.
Again, you've got roof construction going on, you've got cranes back there, you've got...
They're not there today.
Forklifts.
We're just talking lean-to type stuff. I don't think it's anything difficult.
You're still putting our employees in peril by running them through a construction zone. Unless you're going to put up scaffolding.
To Miles's point, though, we're talking, and perhaps I'm wrong, we're talking as if, and then me making the statement is assuming that we're going to be continuing to deal with this COVID for well into the future. But we're talking as if this project is going to be ongoing until December 30th, 2020 in the alleyway.
You never know.
Well, it's 60% complete. We do know that. Are the materials up?
It really is immaterial if we use scaffolding like in major cities or what was done over here, working with the Robins and the Renaissance or the old First National building.
We had the front of the building.
Scaffolding in place and then some kind of tarping over that, and all of a sudden you've got a protected and dry walkway. That's a simple solution.
Is that going to interfere with the construction activities?
No,
If we have employees coming in between 7 and 9 o'clock in the morning and leaving between 4 and 5, we can just ask them not to have the crane going between 7 and 9 and 4 and 5.
I don't know that that matters really, as long as we put up the protective barriers and scaffolding. This is done in every major city where you have huge population.
Yep.
And then, again, put deputies in position in places to marshal people in at each entry point.
I would tell you that we could also use this money to open up the west entrance on the courthouse and put in ADA accessibility there. And that's a nice wide open entrance.
Do that in front of the annex. Those people who congregate, those people who would ordinarily congregate in the vestibule between the security checkpoint and the revolving doors, that kind of a measure could be taken on the east side of the courthouse, on the north side of the annex. I think that's a good approach.
Agreed.
Okay, so what I'm hearing in regard to traffic considerations, obviously encouragement to stagger reporting times. Secondary to that, using the west alley gate for employee entry to include scaffolding for foot traffic in the alley, and using the north entry for public access, and making reasonable accommodations, obviously, for anyone requesting or requiring such to bring them in either through the north or whatever, and also to open the east entry to the courthouse for courthouse traffic.
It would be helpful if we knew what the staggered start times are, so that we don't have everybody bunching up at 7:30 or 7 o'clock. They could be adjusted accordingly.
So in trying to keep my thoughts in alignment, I'll subdivide this discussion. The items I just mentioned, I'm moving towards recommendations to be made to the VOCC tomorrow. The agenda item is currently in place. Encouragement to stagger reporting times, freight elevator for employees only with 4-person mask equipped ridership, scaffolding, cover foot traffic in the alley, east courthouse entry for court activities to be opened, and the north annex entry for public access, and the alley gate west for employees. Settle on those 5 and then move forward. Everybody good with that?
Did you include the signage?
Not yet. Okay. I think we're going to address, I prefer to address that as a separate item. Okay. First one is encouragement to stagger reporting times. Second is use of freight elevator for employees only, with 4 persons allowable wearing masks. The next is scaffolding to cover foot traffic in the alley. East courthouse entry for court activities, and the north annex entrance for public access, the west alley gate for employee entrance. Accommodations is needed. This can be
Do we want to include additional scaffolding for coverage in the east courthouse area, outside area, and in front of the annex as well.
For inclement weather issues.
Weather.
In front of the annex, they can stand under the overhang, correct?
Got the full lane.
Well, yeah, runs from one end of the building to the next.
You've got that one bump out just to the east side of the entrance there that's not covered.
That would encourage social distancing too.
Yeah. So I just,
Do we want to add east side of courthouse? Because obviously the numbers are going to be increased there.
If we're gonna request that people coming to the courthouse are gonna use the east entrance, I think we should have a covered area for them to be able to stand, whether it's scaffolding or,
Tents.
Yeah.
Tents would be good, although if you put up a couple of tents, it's going to encourage closer congregation, particularly if it's raining or whatever.
possibly,
Scaffolding would too.
and possibly overnight camping.
Doing that anyway. Charcoal is out there.
we've had that before.
What's your recommendation, Mr. Monroe, regarding additional scaffolding on the east of the courthouse and or tents or some other form of cover?
I think you put it all in place and employ sheriff's deputies as needed to make certain that it's secure.
Let me ask you this. Thank you. Almost called you Stacy. The east entrance is pretty short. There's not a lot of room for people there. The west entrance is wide. We have the ability to bring them further into the building. We can snake them in a line for social distancing. Would it be better for us to move that east entrance of the courthouse to an employee type entrance, and then the west side of the courthouse be for the public? And then we could convert, put, a station there, bring them in, and we're not worried about them being undercover or anything of the sort. They'll actually be in the building through a snake line, et cetera. Is that a better thing than looking at scaffolding, or?
I think the more you can provide separation,
The better.
the better, sure.
From a security perspective too, if the public were to come in on the east and courthouse employees through the west or in the alley, that way the magnetometer, the security stuff that's in place on the east could still be employed for folks coming in the courthouse.
It's all portable, and we can just move it.
They do supposedly, I haven't touched base with them, but they did at one point have some portable equipment too. Is that still deployable? I do not know.
I know they have some portable equipment, but I don't know the status.
Go on, that's all.
I understand the gate and restricting employees only to that. But the east courthouse door, I've walked a block. Now you're telling me to walk a block and a half to get in because this is only for employees. I think the confusion's already said, but to use the sports department store that they stand a person out there, they say social distancing, we'll let you in as soon as we can get enough space for you. Please stand social distancing. I mean, if we can do it at a sporting department store in town, I don't know why we can't do it here.
Public versus private. I think that's the big, and I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate it, but the public versus private.
That is referenced in there, and thank you, Ms. Etherington, for the work on that. There's a lot of information in that document.
Well, and people going to a sporting goods store don't have to be there at a particular time like they might be with a court.
So what, I guess did I get lost in translation because I can't read my lips? And to restrict employee only through one door that people for years have used that for their access to get to the courts. in the courthouse. And then, I guess I'm lost as far as, so we can't tell them, hey, as soon as we get you in here, I'm talking about, the body jam. If we think, okay, 15 people at the annex is social distancing, and once we get 3 people in here, we can let you in the door. It's nothing about, oh, we can only have 50 people in the building. It's about getting them through the door. So I don't know where public versus private plays into that.
What if on that east end, you open that up to where it's an entry only and not an exit? Because that's where, I mean, it gets really tight, people entering and exiting, and then on the west side, you make that your exit. You don't need your magnetometers or anything up there. You got deputies verifying people exiting the building and not entering. And then just you could open that east end up wider for entrance if you eliminated the exit feature of that side.
Could help. And back to what Mr. Monroe says about distancing, and we're attacking bottlenecks. That's the whole issue. It's trying to run too many people through a narrow area, whether it's entry, exit, which door we're talking about.
Yeah.
That would help a
I
lot.
think it was
Sheriff's Office, Judge Stinson there, that they use that little makeshift hallway to go down, so that would have to stay behind or access to that.
I think it would be good if we had a representative from the sheriff's office in here to talk about it, because we can talk about it all we want to, and they can say, no, we can't do that.
And I did have a discussion with several of those gentlemen this morning, and they were completely unaware of a whole lot of the things we've been talking about, including Judge Elliott's information. They were quite interested in that. I asked them specifically because of their comments by Sheriff Blake and others about the increased staffing, and they were aware of some of that, although it was very limited. I did ask them too about, so the obvious thing is going to be upon them to stand out, keep people outside, screen, that kind of stuff.
And an observation, and it's probably wrong. If we sit here and try to come up with a perfect plan, we're never going to have a plan. And someone, somewhere, be it our employees or members of the public, are going to be inconvenienced. What we need to attempt to do, and I think we're all working towards that end, and we just haven't reached a consensus yet, is what makes the most reasonable, common sense approach to protecting the health and welfare of our public and the employees who have to come down here to do business. In part, I think our employees will understand. I think most members of the public will understand if there are some delays in being able to get in here, if we're doing all we can to protect them. It's akin to waiting to get on an airplane, right? I have to go, if I want to go in that airplane, I have to wait to go through screening. Is there grumbling? Yes. But at the end of the day, people wait in a line so they can get in the airplane. Now, the analogy is not totally apples to apples, but people wait. And they're going to have to wait here. I would bet we can't find a perfect solution anywhere, especially when you're trying to respect the rights of those people that have to be here to conduct business. And it's a very fine line, and Aaron and Carrie pointed that out quite well in their opinion. So the other option is to do nothing. And that in and of itself is an action. So an option.
On the topic of security and using the sheriff's public building authority pays for the sheriff's patrol over there. I don't know why the same can't be done with off-duty or reservists. A simple ask, and I think, I think that could be provided at every entrance and every location where it's necessary, and funded by the mechanism in place.
Agree. That's part of my discussion with them this morning is overtime availability and bringing more officers in. Joe, I agree with your comments, and I had the same thoughts when Michael was sharing those observations. I think if you come to do business, whether you're at the athletic store or whether you're coming to county, you need to come early and expect things to be different. Somebody who's routinely here several days a week, expecting it to be just like it was 4 months ago is simply going to meet with disappointment. But it's the best effort where we're headed. I'm in agreement with you. Okay, I added West End exit to reopen courthouse for exit only to the other items that I had.
There's nothing wrong, in my opinion, presenting multiple options regarding ingress and egress to the VOCC.
Keith, do you know the west entrance, does it have crash bars on the doors?
Yes.
Okay.
That entrance used to be open. I mean, yeah. And I mean, recently, like within the past 10 years, it was open.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But
With security.
Yeah.
But the security measures have been removed. And I know the sheriff's deputies use hand wands occasionally for those people who cannot go through the security check mechanism. A simple deputy with a wand or two over there, it shouldn't be that hard.
What about the west door of this building also for exit only?
Sure. Put a deputy at every entrance, at every doorway.
Including the south one on the,
If need be, then the steps present a problem there. But it can be used.
is it because they're up and not down? I mean, we got steps on every entrance
Well,
into
those
the
are-
courthouse.
Yeah, but
I mean, that's just,
It
that's
can
the
be
way it was
used.
designed.
it can be used. And that was designed to handle a lot of people.
Yep.
David, while we're at a lull, I'd like to move to accept the report from the DA into the record.
Aaron, was it all 8 pages? Was there any more than that?
Second.
Motion second. Sir.
It was 8 pages.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Barnes is an aye. Would it be value for me to reread these with slight modification? Okay. Item number 1 was encouragement to stagger reporting times. Number 2 is freight elevator for employees only, 4 persons with masks. Item number 3 was scaffolding to cover foot traffic in the alley and possibly at the east courthouse entrance. Number 4, east courthouse entry for court activities. And the west end exit reopened for exiting only on the courthouse. Number 5, entry the north public access, the west and the alley gate for employees. Number 6, I would revise the order of all these, obviously. Number 6 is ADA accommodations, access as necessary. Number 7, west annex door open for an exit only.
David, I'd like to see us go ahead and possibly recommend encouraging to continue to work where possible. or rotating, workforce in and out of the building, 2 weeks at home, 2 weeks here, something of that.
Item number 8, encourage telecommuting and/or staggering workforce.
Okay, I will move, those recommendations.
Second?
Motion second. Mr. Matthews.
Aye.
Mr. Blau.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Mr. Davidson.
Aye.
Barnes is an aye. Fully anticipate extensive discussion, VOCC. Be prepared for that, but certainly tuning up for that.
Okay, David, you're going to prepare that document?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, signage. We've got 2 recommendations here, a couple of modifications. Miles, you want to talk about that?
Oh, go ahead. I mean, it's just CDC stuff.
Miles pulled up a CDC document guidance in regard to the mask required, all persons over the age of 5 required, et cetera. And CDC guidance indicated age 2 and over. I know Mr. Matthews is not possessing and protected to that number.
No, that was just the number.
Right.
2 and over. So all persons.
Yeah, it says 2 years and over should wear cloth face coverings when they're in the community setting to help stop the spread.
Okay. I can certainly revise that quickly.
It's just a suggestion.
We have a question in the back.
May I throw something out for your consideration? If we're going to implement a requirement that all employees wear masks, they also consider, for ADA purposes, we need to have sign language interpreters on site, because now with face covering, you're taking away our ability to communicate to those who are deaf. So,
So aren't most of those on call currently with the public defender's office to where we can,
no idea.
so from what I know from one friend that's a Hispanic interpreter for the public defender in the courts and one that's a sign language interpreter for the courts and public defender, that those things are on call, and should that need arise, we could get them here rather rapidly, and they usually respond within about 30 minutes to an hour. So
In the meantime,
And I believe that, and Aaron, that's a great point. I believe there are also some services available online where you can do something like that.
yeah, they got the phones and stuff that they can call
Probably
in.
make all of our employees aware of this.
Education.
Yeah.
Not only a requirement so that they know that they have to provide that accommodation, but know how to reach interpreters if needed,
Yeah.
online, service that you're thinking of. We need to make sure that everyone is very well aware of that.
Most of our phones will do voice to text. Would that serve the same purpose?
I mean,
If you could speak it into your phone and it shows up on the screen.
Well, I thought we were gonna, mirror, Judge Elliott's order, and doesn't it reference highly recommend masks?
And the other judges may require. So,
But I think we're at a point where if some of the offices are gonna require a mask to do business, we were gonna hand some masks out at the door, but then noticing, since I stated that yesterday, 3 and 4, the customers on 4 the fourth and third floor, the customers didn't have masks. So I guess the requirement that at one point in time was listed in some of those offices is not necessarily there. And I've noticed staff that has had masks on in the past, now that the plexiglasses are up, they do not. So, in reference to whether we require or how they suggest, like the Judge Elliott's order states, I don't know if we're there to say require or if this is a guideline. We will offer masks if you feel like you need a mask. I just don't know that thou shall require versus what the judge ordered for various parts of the building.
One of the statements in the draft reopening guidelines that I provided addresses that in somewhat of a generic manner, I think allowing some flexibility. Statement is wear a face mask, parentheses, cloth or surgical style, when contacting the public or in close proximity of coworkers or customers. So it's partially a judgment call as to your proximity, which obviously refers to social distancing. It gives flexibility, as someone mentioned, like Joe did, in your office, unless you're entertaining the public or whatever, you have flexibility there. So is your primary question or concern in regard to requirement to wear a mask as opposed to encouragement?
Well, in a lot of these things, I believe the CDC is guidelines. I don't know that it was all set out in law, thou shall or thou shall not. And I would have to double check with the office that I thought we were, there was one of the offices previously that this meeting was referencing that they were requiring a mask for them to do business with them. But there again, this week I've seen customers without masks doing business there. So that was my concern yesterday, and the fact that if certain offices were going to require covering to come into the building and do business, then we would have to sit there and hand out masks to those that do not have masks. Because at some point in time, you're going to get in the building, but if you get to the office that you have to have a mask, then you come all the way through, whether you're exposed or exposing. I guess at this point is not relevant because you got to the office that's saying, hey, you need a mask. But now seeing that office isn't even having customers wear masks, and I guess if the plexiglass is enough for them to feel protected. But I do know as far as where safety is concerned, if the employees of the courthouse are wearing them, or there's plexiglass between us, are we going to thou shalt wear your mask, and I know the concerns of a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old for that matter, trying to keep something, can't even keep their socks on, let alone trying to keep something over their face. And knowing that they're guidelines, I don't know that, we're not gonna sit there and say, hey, you can't come in here with this 4-year-old because he's not wearing a mask. I wouldn't recommend that. But the judge has ordered for the courtrooms and for the court clerk's office, highly recommend we probably should have some masks available at the front door as well.
So, Michael, I think I'm getting what you're saying to a certain degree. I'm searching for something. So I think you have a valid point. If there are protections in place, such as the plexiglass that we've got up, then it may not be necessary for that employee to wear a mask when conducting business with the public. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, that's what I'm seeing. And on the customer side, I would,
The customers, okay, I recognize that. A little bit different, though, in that the customer is in a common area. Hopefully it's social distance, but maybe or maybe not. So if you want to make an allowance, if we want to make an allowance in the recommendation where there are protections in place to provide for separation to the mask requirement when interacting with the public, that's fine. Not every place has those. You know, far be it for me to assume, but if I have plexiglass here, then I understand I may not require the person appearing before me to have a mask. So I'm amenable to changing that. Again, the point of all of this is to try to come up with ways to protect both our employees and the public. So if you have plexiglass in place for separation, then okay, that's great. But if there's not, then you need to wear a mask. Part of this is we have to be adults about this. And I understand. It's not.
Agreed. We have to be adults about this. You also have to understand that as things begin to reopen, people may be asymptomatic, like we like to talk about, but there may be individuals that can't. Once the employer says you need to return to work, are they going to be able to return to work? Are they, I don't know how to put this delicately. If a single mother suspects that she has COVID or that her child has COVID, and she can't afford to miss work, you're asking her to make a very difficult decision on multiple things. One, she needs to work to put money in the bank to buy her kids food, etc. And I think there's things that could be done. I think we have things to help them get paid. I could be wrong. But I'm worried about that employee coming up here and feeling like they have to be here, and then we go into an
As you recall,
infectious stage.
and I think it was ultimately approved maybe it wasn't. When the initial CARES Act, emergency leave came out, we were big proponents of putting that into place. That is now federal law. That employee that you're talking about, if we're following federal law, is covered. Now that's not even taking into consideration that what we have been doing, I believe, is people in that circumstance have been granted paid personal leave.
Yeah.
And you know, where that paid personal leave ends and maybe this CARES Act stuff has kicked in, that's within the realm of those individual offices, and their various HR departments. Am I sensing that you're wanting a standardized policy in that regard?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
Well, I mean, we can't. I mean, we can for our BOCC departments, correct? But we can't enforce that on. And that kind of gets me back to the adult aspect.
And Terry's more the personnel law person, but one of the issues that the county faces, in my opinion, is the unequitable application of leave. And maybe Cody will remember, but I don't seem to think that despite efforts to do so, the CARES Act leave made it into the handbook. Is that correct, Dan?
It didn't. It's federal law. We have to follow it. And it's FFCRA rather than the CARES Act.
It is.
Family First, or Family First Coronavirus
Yes, I couldn't
Relief Act.
remember that. But one of the things, at least in the effort to place it into the handbook, was that it was crystal clear that it was the policy of Oklahoma County to follow the federal law. We have that in place in our handbook with other with references to other federal or state laws, ADA, FMLA, some of the federal disaster leave. So yeah, Miles, I see where you're headed, and I appreciate, and that is fine.
So it's a two-step thing, and I think we should certainly discuss that further, but it's two steps. So with that, are we going to screen employees as they come in? Because that gets to the barrier aspect. Yes, there is a barrier between you and the public, but that employee that you're sitting next to, that may or may not know that you have COVID, or you may be asymptomatic.
You have Aaron's opinion. There are certain instances where screening is permissible. As we went over yesterday, you have a contrary opinion to at least 4 of us on this group. Temperature taking in and of itself is not.
It's not the single, but I mean.
And so.
I mean, CDC. I mean, I just pulled it up. Pre-screen employees. Employers should measure the employee's temperature and assess symptoms prior to them starting work. Ideally, temperature checks should happen before the individual enters the facility. We have been hammering following CDC guidelines from day one. And that's like their very first on guidance for implementing safety practices. And it continues from there. But the very first one that they kind of suggest is.
But there's also personal responsibility as well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We can ask individuals to take their temperature before they come to work.
Yep.
If you've got fever, you have these other symptoms, stay home. Don't come to work. That should be number one.
And that gets to Joe's point. We have to act like adults.
Yes. And there are mechanisms in place for individuals who are sick to receive sick leave over and above what the county has granted them or they have accrued under the FFCRA. They get 2 weeks of emergency sick leave up to an amount of, I believe it's $511 per day based on their base salary. So we're giving folks the opportunity to not lose a paycheck.
We're going to go back and add, what would it be, an 8th or a 9th, because it's growing list. I'm all for,
Well, no,
but I'm all
Not
for
do that quite yet.
I'm all for reemphasizing the if you're sick, stay home message.
and that's, I mean, I don't, yes. Absolutely, if you're sick, stay home.
I think that's a given.
Yeah.
It's also included in the document that before this meeting ends, we've got a 1:30 budget board meeting coming up. Again, readdress the reopening guidance document, and it definitely is included in that. A lot of it.
You know, I don't think you can emphasize enough, if you're sick, stay home. Because some of the early issues we had were people who came to work when they were sick, and then we ended up having to quarantine other individuals while we were waiting test results. So I'm all in favor of adding that to the list. That we continue that emphasis.
David, if you can, recite the list again.
Yes, sir. Encouragement to stagger reporting times. Freight elevator for employees only, 4 with mask. Scaffolding is covered for the foot traffic in the alley and at the east courthouse entrance. East courthouse entry for court activities, west end exit to reopen. ADA accommodations and access as necessary. West annex door open for exit only. Encourage telecommuting and or staggering workforce and schedules. And potentially to add emphasis on stay at home if ill. Actually, maybe stay at home if ill or exhibiting CDC recognized signs and symptoms of COVID-19.
Well, I thought that was a practice even before COVID. If you're sick, stay home. With the items before us, and before we had too much more, did we not put the signage out there yet? Or is that decided far? Okay, with the items you have before you, I move to recommend those to the BOCC for consideration of guidelines.
Second. Oh, we did it. Did we not do that already? I don't know.
I think we did that already.
It seems like,
Well, you've added to the list.
yeah,
Do we have a
we
motion?
did add to
There's
the
no
list.
harm in Michael's motion.
Yeah,
I think mine.
there's been a motion and a second, so.
Motion and
Run
second.
it.
Roll call, Mr. Matthews.
Aye.
Mr. Wild.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Barnes is aye.
And then do you want to,
Yeah, we need to get something on the signage going. Then we're back to the requirement word.
CDC, the employee should wear a face mask at all times within the work.
To avoid public scrutiny.
I think we could be,
Strongly encouraged.
we could be Kevin Stitt and run around without them all the time, but
And to clarify, yeah, it makes sense if the employee is working with the public. My concern with the requirement of a customer to be able to walk in the building or to do their transaction, knowing there's safeguards in place, i.e. on the employee side. We call them plexiglass, in place to protect both them and the employee. My concern is the requirement, thou shalt.
This document that you presented, is it revised from the original in the red?
Actually, what that red indicates is points that require discussion, exactly like what we're having. So I do have a modification that based on our discussion so far today. We probably should entertain a motion to accept the document.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, Mr. Matthews.
Aye.
Mr. Brown. Yes. Mr. Taylor. Mr. Davidson.
Yes.
Barnes is an aye. What this is pretty much the same thing we had before. A recommendation to put in all employees' hands. The items that I've highlighted in red, I believe include anything that could potentially be a point of contention or discussion among employees, identical to the discussion we're having here. I draw your attention to page 2, bullet point 3. Wear a face mask cloth or surgical style when contacting the public in close proximity to coworkers or customers. I intend to revise that, something to the effect like, or adequate distance, or if barriers are in place, i.e. the plexiglass, whatever. I can modify that statement to reflect social distancing and barriers in place. Other than that, the items in red are things that we really not nailed down. And I believe it was Mr. Davidson emphasized at yesterday's meeting several times. It's next Monday. So I put that out for your reading pleasure, discussion.
So Joe, I've read this as best as I can up here while we're discussing everything else. Does it address mask or is this just temperature?
It does not specifically address math. There may be portions of it that could be applicable.
Okay, so I'll go back to what Carrie said last week. The employment law specialist, where she said that she didn't believe there was any doubt that we could do temperature checks of employees and could require masks. She stood right about there. And I
agree that we could.
We're not going to do. Don't even bring temperature into this.
I would agree, Miles, that we could.
I'm just talking masks.
More than likely require masks. But before that happens, I would certainly want to run that by Aaron and Terry. That specific answer. One of the biggies is having a very specific, clear-cut procedure for that recommended.
Okay.
If we need to do some more discussion on this document, I'm going to suggest we do a recess till after the special budget board meeting to allow time for cleaning to come in and clean up after.
Yeah, very good point. Probably you want to fill out the time. If we don't make it, but we're going to do the time.
Till 3 o'clock.
What's on budget for you?
It is appropriation of money for here's the CARES Act discussion.
Go 8 a.m. in the morning.
Right. It could be extended. So probably
2:30?
2:33 either way. We're gonna need. I don't know.
I'm going to to recess till 3 o'clock this afternoon to the LCC room.
Before you do that, I'm sorry, but the sheriff is in the room and you might ask him the question whether or not he can provide additional staff for the entries and exits.
Hey, Sheriff.
I'll table my motion.
That's gonna.
We still actually have item number 7 open as well, which involves reopening discussion. And we've had several questions in regard to, I know that you and Under Sheriff Blake had made mention that there's going to be additional staffing available. Of course, the overtime or any additional costs incurred would certainly be considered under CARES Act as a compensable item. We're kind of interested in the number of available officers, whether reservists or on duty or whatever, and the ability to station them in various locations throughout both facilities possibly some as greeters, if you will, outside to screen folks before they get in and hopefully alleviate some bottlenecks and point them in different directions. We've got recommendations for BOCC tomorrow for the use of different exits and entry points other than what are typically have been open. So what kind of,
Well, if you could shoot me an email kind of laying out your plan or what your recommendation is, if you get it to me today or tomorrow,
Sure.
we'll certainly work on it. I know we're planning starting May 18th. I mean, our goal is to have at least 5 to 10 extra deputies over here. We're going to try to keep that going. I've been told that we can recover overtime money for extra deputies, so we're getting the word out to anybody that wants to work overtime, any reserves that want to donate time, or we can pay the reserve what we normally pay them 15 an hour. But our deputies would be time and a half. But that's our goal, starting May 18th, to have quite a few extra deputies over here. So I think we'll be in good shape.
very good, thanks, sir. Any other question or discussion for Sheriff?
Second, the motion to recess.
Time. We need to accept the reports by number 7.
Move to receive.
Second.
Motion second, Mr. Matthews.
Aye.
Mr. Blount. Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Barnes is an aye. We have a motion to recess until 3 o'clock this afternoon, BOCC room. Michael?
Would you be amenable to making that 2:30 so that we're not sitting around in the event the budget would end, waiting to come back?
Can we do 1:30 or when budget
Contingent
board
on budget board.
was reconvening? Right?
Amend my motion to, the completion of the special budget board meeting, or 2 o'clock, whichever is sooner.
Yeah, second.
Second.
Third.
Very good. Motion,
Acclamation.
motion second, third. Matthews.
Aye.
Blount. Davis.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Barnes is aye. We'll stand in recess. Thank you.
Thank you. We can do that within the same day, but not the day.